To begin our terrain, we're going to create a new 3D project. I'm going to label mine terrain. It's up to you what you want to call yours. I'm going to click create. And when Unity opens up, in my scene view, I want to come over to the hierarchy and create, do 3D object and terrain. This adds a rectangle shape that we'll use as our ground, and I can use the wheel on the mouse to scroll out. Making sure terrain is selected in your hierarchy. Working in the inspector of the terrain, I'm going to click on the paintbrush under the terrain. You can see I can change the brush size. I have several different types of brushes, and I also can reduce or increase the opacity of my brush. When I hold over the terrain and I click, you can see that it starts to raise the ground up to create mountains and valleys. I can change my brushes. While I'm doing this, I can also change the brush size and opacity so we can create different types of effects. The more I click, the higher it goes. I'm going to add in some terrain here just so you can see what it might look like as I'm working. If you hold down the shift key, you can also lower the terrain. Different types of brushes have different effects. If you want to add in terrain that has all one height, you want to come down to set height, and then you would change the number here. Right now it says 0, but you can change it to any number so that the terrain is all one height. And again, you can use your brush, make it as opaque as you want, so you can either paint in a lot faster or paint in a lot slower. So here with my opacity lower, it's taken a little while to add in this terrain. This comes in really handy when you're trying to create a path, and you're going to see now that I've increased my opacity how much easier it is to quickly put in a path. So I'm just going to go around and add in a path for my terrain, making it smoother, and everything will be the set height that I want. I'm going to click on the Y so that you can kind of see from a top view what I am doing by setting in the terrain. We also have a couple other options to raise or lower the terrain using the brush and the opacity just as we have in the past. With this drop down, I'm going to come down to smooth height. So using this one and my brush, it's going to smooth out those rough edges, kind of lower some areas, but make it a little bit softer. Things won't be as jaggedy. You can do this after it's painted, after you have trees on there, and everything will just lower as needed. We can create neighbor terrains by zooming out and seeing where you want to add in a neighbor terrain. You can add in another terrain that you're able to edit. So if I click on raise or lower terrain and I come in and I start using my brush, you can see that I can easily add in more terrain. So using the skills that you have just learned, I want you to go create a terrain using at least one terrain box, if not two, and make an interesting terrain for your character to run around in. We will be adding textures and trees, but right now I want you to think about having a path, think about having obstacles in the way for the person. You want to raise and lower certain areas, have some mountains and valleys when you are done.